Nice.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak Ibu, good morning. Can you hear me clearly? Well, I hope so. This morning, we're going to have our first session in our webinar series. And today we're going to have Pak Munir session. We are going to talk about Theorizing Practice by English teachers. Before we start, please allow me to to remind you the rules again. First, I see there are some of you who don't use your name in the name you use in registration form. So please rename your name there. Okay, please rename your name, your Zoom name, so we can recognize you. Okay, please rename you. And please use the name you use in the register form. And then the second one, please fill out the attendance list shared through Telegram later. And as you know, and to make our webinar run smoothly, the participant will be all muted during the webinar. Later, if you want to ask questions, please use the format we have give you to you. So you can put hashtag us, and then you put your participant name, affiliation, and then write your question. Okay. Before we finish the webinar, we're going to share the link for exit tickets. So please make sure that you fill in the link of the exit ticket, so you can get the certificate of this webinar. So thank you very much for your participation in our webinar today. And before we come to our main session, please allow us to play our national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Please, the committee. Let's listen Thank you. Now we're going to invite the head of English Department Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Ibu Prativi Retnaningtya, to give opening speech. Bu Prativi, time's yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bu Wiwit. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Praise to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for His blessings and protection, so that up to now we're all in good health, safe and sound. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar series hosted by the English Department, Faculty of Languages and Arts, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, UNESA, satu langkah di depan. I'm so excited and so pleased to have you all here in this forum. Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate your great enthusiasm. I see here on the Zoom room, there are 133 people got admitted, but we currently have 500 people registered and are able to host as many as 300 participants in Zoom. But we are now also live on YouTube in our YouTube channel, English Department UNESA. So we're hoping to be able to reach out to those who cannot make it to Zoom. Ladies and gentlemen, today, the 1st of July, this is the first of 8 sessions on various and also equally interesting topics. And this webinar series is part of our commitment to knowledge sharing and production, as well as, of course, community engagement. We gain full support from our academic forums. We have 2 academic forums, best practices, run by my colleagues from the English Education Study Program, and also Folilux, Forum on Literature, Language and Cultural Studies, run by my colleagues from the English Literature Study Program. I really hope that today's session on Theorizing Practice by English teachers help us make a better sense of our day-to-day teaching practice, especially during this challenging time of pandemic. I'd really like to extend my deepest appreciation to my beloved team, the webinar team, for making the series come in full shape. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, please stay connected to us through our YouTube channel, English Department UNESA, and also our Instagram account at English UNESA for our upcoming events. So, on behalf of the English Department, I would like to wish you a very productive session and thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Over to you, Bu Wiwit.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah, thank you very much, PTV. Yeah, well, we are about to enter our main session. Today, our topic is about the rising practice by English teachers. This topic is a bit hard, so I hope you are ready to hear this topic. If you need something to drink, if you need snack for you to support your spirit, listen to Pak Munir. You can take it now because after this you will have to listen to Pak Munir attentively. This morning, this topic will be delivered by Pak Munir, and Pak Munir will try to introduce you to the origin of the rising practice. He will also show empirical evidence of English teachers' theorizing practice. And hopefully, in the end of our webinar today, you will be encouraged to do the theorizing practice yourself. Pak Munir, I believe that you are so ready to deliver your presentation, so time is yours now. Okay, Pak Munir. So that's what's your curriculum vitae. Pak Munir is our the head of our English education program now. He was the head of language center, and previously he was the head of master English education. Sorry, English masters in our under our graduate programs in Universitas Negeri Surabaya. Okay, so without further ado, Pak Munir, time's yours again. Sorry. Yeah.
Um,
Share screen, please. Yeah.
yes. Okay. Thank you, Bu Wiwit, and thank you, Bu Prativi, for introducing me and also giving me the chance to share my knowledge on theorizing practice by English teachers. I also thank all the English teachers who are participating in our webinar today. I really appreciate your high enthusiasm in getting into. I hope that this is what is it, a trigger for your professional development. Um, I'd like to remind you that this concept, theorizing practice by English teacher, is not uh, easy. I mean, it's not a straightforward concept. So I hope that you pay very close attention to my presentation today. I'd like also to invite you to comment and also to ask questions in the end of my presentation. I know this is a very long webinar for a single presenter, 2 hours, but I do hope that my presentation today can trigger further discussion, also reflections among us, the practicing English teachers. So thank you for introducing my CV to Wiwit. I'm actually very new in holding this position as the head of English education study program. It's less than 2 weeks and 1 week now, since the first announcements last Monday. So 1 week now. So I'm very new in this position. Um, yes, I've been in this field or area of study, English teacher education for quite a long time. Since 2004, I've been involved in uh, many projects commissioned by the Department of National Education at that time in many English teacher trainings held organized by the Department of National Education at that time and up to now. I think the last time that I went to um, Surabaya when I had a serious workshop with English teachers, with the English teachers in Surabaya. Yeah. So basically, I would like to uh, introduce the origin of theorizing practice. As I said, this is not easy concept, very abstract, and I would like to make it well compact, easy to digest. That's why I need to introduce the origin and also show you some of the features and characteristics of theories um, developed by English teachers. I would like also to share my studies as evidence of the theorizing practice by English teachers in Indonesia. Yeah, there will be two empirical studies that I conducted, and I would like to share with you in order to show you that uh, teachers are actually theory builders already. And then um, I hope that we can reflect on these two studies, and you are then encouraged, to begin theorizing your own practice. Well, what I would like to share in terms of the tips, in developing theories from your practice would be very normative. That's why you can or have a discussion. We can have discussion on that on those tips at the end of my presentation. First, when we have the word theorizing a practice, of course, you all of a sudden have two words, theories and a practice. Yeah. So that's right. Theorizing practice means that you derive theories from practice. But what is actually theorizing practice? Some experts have attempted to define theorizing practice. One of them is Richard 2015. Of course, everyone knows Richards very well because Jack C. Richards is famous author in the area of English language teaching and also teachers development, yeah. Second language teachers development. Yeah. It is a critical reflection of own classroom practices in order to better understand the nature of language teaching and learning, yeah? And to arrive at explanations or hypotheses about them. So very important in this theorizing practice is reflection. And the reflection should be critical reflection, critical reflection on own classroom practices. Yeah. So what's the outcome of the critical reflection? Of course, better understanding, yeah, yeah, of the nature of language teaching and learning. You know, nature in this term can be translated into bahasa as the hakikat, you know, of language teaching and learning. And don't forget to arrive at explanations or hypotheses about them. Then, you know, from your reflection, you become you know your context very well, so that you can explain what was actually happening there in your own practices. Yeah? Explanation and hypothesis. Yeah. So later, maybe you have questions over the term hypothesis. Yeah? Because hypothesis is temporary answers to questions, queries. Others, for example, Magubay et al. 2004, Magubay et al. From Australia, define theorizing practice as practical knowledge that teachers use to guide their action. So here, theorizing practice equals knowledge. Yeah. The first is equals to reflection, and this one is knowledge. Yeah, yeah, of course, these attempts to define will give some ideas what theorizing practice is. So generally, we can draw a definition that theorizing practice is the process of understanding what teachers do in their teaching experiences. Yeah, the process of understanding what teachers do in their teaching experiences. Yeah. In other words, it is developing practice into a theory. So when was it the first time that the word theorizing came into existence? It was actually coined around the years of 2000 by Kumara Partiplu. Yeah, when he, Braj Kumara Partiplu, yeah, when he proposed post method era. When he proposed post method era, post method era is famous for the idea of dysfunction, yeah, between theory and practice. Yeah. So what we actually need yeah, in the post method era and these days are actually post method era is that we do not need a dichotomy between theory and practice. Yeah. In the past, of course, in the era, in the methods era, especially in during the designers methods era, there were dichotomies, yeah. Experts, yeah, and practitioners. Experts as theorizers and teachers as practitioners. So I would actually warn you when you heard the introduction to my CV that I am an expert, So I think sometimes this can be misleading that lecturers are theorizers, lecturers are experts. This can be misleading in that everyone can be actually experts. Yeah. This is what I want to promote in today's webinar. Yeah. That's why I think you need to pay attention very attentively to my explanation on the processes of developing your own theory from practice. So once again, in this era, there is no dichotomy between theorizers and practitioners. This is the marked aspects of the post-method era. I believe in the post-method era, and I do hope that you also believe in post-method era. So what we need is not, you know, a method. We can look at into our uh, our own practice. Yeah. Well, the idea is that teachers can develop own theory from teaching practice. This is personal practical theory. Later, I will talk about theory, definition of theory, and I can explain in detail what we mean by theory, personal practical theory. Well, yes, of course, that doesn't mean that we call it later objective theory or public theory is not necessary. They are necessary. That is why we need teacher education institution. And so it's just like teacher education institutions rules are to maintain, yeah, what we call educational theories, yeah, objective theories as foundation for their graduates. Foundation for the graduates to later develop their personal practical theory. Yeah? Teachers, this is Richards 1998, draw on their experience and understanding as well as their personal principles and beliefs about the teaching, yeah, not derived from what they are taught in teacher education. Even in the before the 2000, there was an idea of you know uh, developing personal practical theories. But Richard was not the one who proposed the post method era. Yeah. Even in, but he actually acknowledged in his book of the second edition of approaches and methods in teacher education. The second edition published in 2001, the post method era. Now, what do I mean by theories? Well, this is theories in teacher education, not in science. So theories in teacher education refer to conceptions of teaching. Yeah, conception. What do you mean by teaching? Yeah, this is theories. Refers to general. They also refer to general conception. General conception applicable to a wide variety of situations based on research and situation specific knowledge and related to context in which problems occurs. In other words, theories can be divided into two, yeah, general conception and situation specific knowledge. This is what we call objective theory and subjective theory. I think you need to pay attention here to the way that I write this one. Objective with capital T, theory, capital T. Yeah. Objective theory. Theories, public theory, general theory, usually offered in or during teacher education, and subjective theory, which is actually situation specific knowledge, yeah, which later is developed by the teachers themselves, yeah, in their context. Theory with small t. Yeah, yeah. Small t theory is actually personal practical theory. Other terms include, for example, objective theory with big capital T can also be called espoused theories, and the subjective theory with small t can also be called in-use theories. Now, I think we need to pay attention to this one. This is what is it? A diagram of development of knowledge about teaching. Yeah, it is one of the ways to show, how teachers develop their personal practical theory. Yeah. So as we saw in my previous slides, that theorizing practice um, is defined as critical reflection on the teaching experiences. So it all starts from experiences with concrete examples, and then from the experiences, it, if they make reflection on their experiences, the reflection may develop into a second level, what we call gestalt. And a gestalt is unity of needs, feelings, observations, and real experiences. And I mean that when somebody, a teacher, has reflected on his or her experiences, and everything becomes one, this one, unity of needs, feelings, observation, and real experiences. They start to understand the nature of language teaching and learning. Oh, this is what it is like to be a teacher, or to be teaching, for example, large classes, and or to be teaching students or class with problems, or reading problems, and so on. So depending on the context that the teachers have, yeah, they begin to enter the second level just now. They they can see everything holistically. When they reflect on the these holistic needs, feelings, observation, and real experiences, they can see the networks. Yeah, see how everything is related to each other. Yeah. Oh, this particular context, for example, with the low entry level, yeah, requires certain strategy, require strategies like this, like that, and such strategy, for example, doesn't work. And so he or she can build such a networks of elements and relations. Then he or she has entered the third level schema. Yeah. When they reflect on these networks of elements and relations, then they enter the ultimate level, the theory formation. What is that? Yeah, the theory formation is actually a logical ordering of the relations in the schema. So higher level of the reflection. So the theory level, this is the big capital T, is characterized by the formulations of definitions, axioms, basic relationship, and logically derived proposition. So he or she can define things in relation to the concepts and relationship that he or she developed in the lower level, the schema level. So I do hope that this can give you some idea that actually the formation or development of theories, personal practical theory, can have different stages, and that may then have a relationship with, we call it the experience, with the length of service in, for example, the schools. Look, sometimes a very expert teacher teaches everything and even change plans in the classroom unconsciously, just like simultaneously. That is what we mean by level reduction. It's just automatic. For example, yeah, the very often an expert teacher have shown such an attitude, yeah, such a behavior. Now, what is actually the result of theorizing? Richards 2015 and also 1998. 1998 is Beyond Training. That's the book. You can check later in the references. Yeah, the end. But this is may doesn't mean that there are possibilities, of course, on the result of theorizing. For example, number one can be explanations. Yeah, why things happen in the way they do. Second, maybe generalizations about the nature of things, or principles, yeah, that can form the basis of subsequent action. Or lastly, can also be the development of personal teaching philosophy. So if you look at the previous here diagram, yeah. So at the end of the theory here, formation here, may end up in four different what is it results. Yeah. Can be explanation, generalization, principles, and also philosophy. Yeah. This is an example by Richards. When, for example, a teacher has reached theorizing practice, yeah, arriving at explanation. For example, this one, children are much better language learners than adults because, yeah. So you see here the word because here. So this teacher can now explain why children are much better language learners than adults, because they are not worried about making mistakes and are much more prepared to take risks. So the language learning and anxiety, and anxiety, yeah, because so explanation. And what about generalization? This is an example. The second, when we begin learning a language, it's better to follow the natural way using imitation. Yeah. But when you are more advanced, yeah, then you need to know more about the grammar. So this is making a generalization that look, language learning for children is imitation, but for adult, it's better to start with a grammar, something like that. So generalization, yeah. And others, yeah. So the indications for explanation is there is a statement of a statement and also the research. Yeah. Now, what about developing principles and teaching philosophy? Richard 2015 has made a description like this. This is a vignette. Yeah, vignette is actually words statement by teachers. Yeah, written in here in a story like this. I think it's important to be positive as a personality. I think the teacher has to be a, a positive person. I think you have to show a tremendous amount of that. I think you look at that. It's important. Have to show it's important, and so there is a emphasis here on the what is it uh, must obligation, something like that, persuasive and obligation. Such expression shows that he or she is actually developing principles and teaching philosophy. This is the conclusion that teachers made here on this vignette. This teacher's philosophy emphasizes the teacher's attitude. Yeah. So, positive, the word patience, attitude, and so on. So, attitude and the need to create a supportive environment for learning in the classroom. The word emphasizes, she stresses the need for lesson planning, but the justification for lesson is based on helping the students rather than helping the teacher. So lesson planning is helping the learners, not so. Again, this is both uh, developing principles and teaching philosophy. Example, the end result of theorizing practice by teachers. Now, empirical evidence, yeah. Yes, I think it is important for me to show you that yes, teachers are capable of developing a personal practical theory, developing theories from their practice. Yeah. So this is no bluffing, but this is a reality from my study. I would like to share with you two studies of mine conducted in 2018 and 2019. One of them, the 2019, has been published in an international conference proceeding. My study, the first study in 2018, it was actually a survey on in Facebook. I asked the respondents to provide possible new theory developed from the daily teaching experiences. As a survey, yeah, there is a limitation in a survey. Of course, there is no what is it, in-depth explanation on that. But I attempted to share with you here the result in an easy way. Please, that's one of the questions in the survey questionnaire. Please provide possible new theory developed from the daily teaching experience. Okay. Yeah. This is the respondent, 107 respondents, female, mostly female. Yeah. So more female teachers than male. Yeah, I think this is the fact that teachers are female. Yeah. That's why in the past, and when we refer to a teacher, the personal pronoun is always she. Yeah. Because this is a reality, a statistic has shown that there are more female teachers than male. Look at the teaching context here, mostly in JHS, junior high school, yeah, and secondly in undergraduate. Yeah. So at that time, the respondents were mostly in my circles at that time. Yeah, circles. I mean, those who know me. That's when I was actually the what is it? The that was when I was the head of the graduate program in Pasca Sarjana UNESA. Yeah, so that's one the context. Yeah. Now this is of course uh, uh, the reality that we get from the survey when they were asked, whether they develop new theory. Look at the statistic. Yeah, yes, yeah, 58, yeah, 58 out of 107. So more than 50% of them said that yes, we develop a new theory. Look, they are confident uh, in saying that. Now, you, all of you participants in this webinar, should also be confident in developing your theory. Yes. No response. So I don't know, but the second largest response is no response. Yeah, no response means I don't know what happens in their head because I didn't conduct an in-depth interview with them. But there is a possibility of reluctance here, not knowing what to what is it, what to say, or whether or not they uh, uh, but look at that, not sure too and not yet too. Yeah. So, but most of them didn't give a response. Yeah. They don't know what a theory is. But at that time, I gave them a definition of theory. Of course, at that time, I told them that in the questionnaire, yeah, what I mean by theory, theorizing means that of a systematic explanation of the observed pattern of behavior. Yeah. Now, among the those who answered yes, that they develop new theory, claim new theories, they can label, yeah, the new theory. 25 out of 58 label the theory. Yeah. They can also draw generalization 13 out of 58. To develop principles and philosophy. And lastly, unclear. So when they are asked, what theory, this is from my analysis, unclear. So what they write as theory is not clear. I couldn't understand what they mean, whether that is a theory or just what is it, an account or description of what they do actually in the classroom. So, but look, there is a possibility 25, yeah, plus 13, so 38 can give proper labels of the new theory, and also show generalization as the results of their theorizing practice. Look, this is a very good potential. Yeah, this is empirical evidence from the English teachers in Indonesia. Yeah, that they are actually developing theories from practice. Now, I'd like to share with you their claim new theories, claim, label, new theories. Well, yes, of course, I use the word claim. Yes, of course, as they say it. These are not 100% in English, because this is a very copy and paste form. I haven't made it into. But my purpose is actually to show you that this is what they really answered in my survey. Look, there is a word here, teori belajar tanpa melihat nilai. So I don't know, but well, there is a label here, yeah, teori belajar tanpa melihat nilai. But actually, we also need to get an explanation. What do we mean by teori belajar tanpa melihat nilai? But I didn't have in-depth interview with that. Now, please look at the list here. You see that in the list that some of these claim, label, new theories are actually not new theory. Is it theory? Theory, scientific approach. Is it a theory? If it is a theory, this is actually taken from objective theory, not from their practice. But this is very, very interesting here. There is theory werewolf. Yeah. Wow, this is a very innovative teacher here who coined, yeah, a term, werewolf. Yeah. Werewolf theory. Unfortunately, I didn't have in-depth interview with this teacher. There is a word, know, experience, and reflect. Yeah, know, experience, and reflect theory. And there's also with master of the day theory. Look, there is a potential once again here by these teachers, my respondents among the 107 teachers, that they are creative, they are innovative, and they can label, they can coin new word for their theory. Yeah. Now, this is the second study that I conducted in 2019, and it's been published in an international conference on research and public services. Yeah. This is in-depth study because I conducted interview with 10 English teachers who are known to have achievement in the English teaching profession. So unlike my previous study, who involved everyone, any teachers who are interested in participating in my survey, but this is very specific. English teachers who are known to have achievement, yeah, in the English teaching profession. Now, so for example, they are a winner of a national best teachers competition. Sometimes they are the head of the what is it, the English teachers study group or MKMP. Yeah? Some teachers, some of them also became the textbooks writers. Yeah, so they have achievement. Yeah, 8 junior high school teachers and 2 vocational high school teachers. Once again, most of them are junior high school teachers. They were asked how they develop their personal practical theory. Yeah. Okay, now these are some of their answers. I focus on practical goals, not theoretical. So this is now you can read through here, skim the expression. Some of them, some of these expressions are not new to us. For example, this one, I use audiolingual method. Of course, audiolingual method is part of the objective theory, the ALM. Yeah. I implement joyful learning, also general one. And let's see here, I maximize the use of student gadget. Yeah. I use inquiry learning. I use real language in real context. And well, if you look at these, none of these are actually a coin as what we had in the in my study, in my first study, the word werewolf theory. But this is actually what they were actually saying in the interview. But this one, the second last year, I create rehearsal, drafting, and presentation for writing. So RDP as a new theory according to this subject. Now, from my analysis of this, using Cortagen and Castle levels of theorizing practice, well, most of them have reached the Gestalt level. Yeah, they have made reflection on the action. Yeah. They see, the unity of things and their observation. Yeah, and 4 at schema, because they can see the concepts and relationship, but unable to explain why. And I think, this is my the result of my analysis, that one of them is at the early stage of theory. Early stage, he can formulate definition, logical a proposition that apply to a large variety of situation. Yeah. Well, some of the personal practical theory resemble examples of principles that teachers have described and previously mentioned by Richard. If you look at the vignettes that I displayed here, and the examples in research, you will find some similarity. But of course, most of them are not yet arriving at explanation and generalizations, and development of personal teaching philosophy. You know, um, this is what I think everyone, the problem that everyone has. I mean, I'm not generalizing, but this based on the fact that most of us are not able to articulate, articulate, are not able to, to say, explain, Yeah, this is also similar to our teachers' knowledge. Most of our our teaching knowledge, is actually tacit. Tacit is in the head, but you cannot articulate them. Yeah, this is our problem here. Yeah. So this is one of the well a conclusion. Yeah. But I mean, we suggest. Yeah. Well, I cannot say that the this is a conclusion, but these from the Virginia that I presented suggest that they are inexperienced in articulating the basis for their teaching practice. Inexperience. If they are not experienced, then there is a potential here of training to actually articulate the basis for the teaching practice. Now, I will tell you how you can do that. How can you develop theory from practice? Of course, from the definition, of course, it has to start from your experience. You have to have experience and reflection based on your experience. Sean 1983 was the one who introduced the concepts of reflection in the profession. Yeah, but most of the examples in Son's book were actually adopted. In the later development in reflective practitioners, you will find that reflection also apply to all of the profession, including teaching. Yeah? You see here, there are three kinds of reflection. Reflection, yeah, inaction, yeah, reflection on action, and reflection for action. Yeah, inaction. So I believe that most of us teachers are doing reflection during our action, in action, and because that is the indications of expert teachers. If you read John Lawrence's books on the expert teachers, you will find that this is decision making during the inaction is the indication of expert teacher. If you can switch, for example, your plan based on the occurrence. The existing context that you are actually experiencing, then you have reached the expert level teacher. In action, on action means that you are making a retrospective reflection. What was actually went wrong, and so on and so forth, and then you plan. What will be the best, and so on. Reflection for action. Okay, so you need to reflect. But what do you reflect? Well, your own daily practice of teaching. And here I specify three, groups: pre-instructional, during instructional, and post-instructional. But of course, this is the day-to-day job of a teacher. Post planning, and then doing, and then reflecting, or assessing, evaluating. That's part of the our parts of our profession. What was actually your plan at that time? How well your plan was working? And when you were actually doing your plan, and after you doing your plan, some of the examples in pre-instructional practices is actually you're developing lesson plan, for example, how you develop your lesson plan. And during, of course, This is the actual doing, and post can include, for example, the assessment that you make, out of the class and so on. Yeah, your own daily practice. But you can also reflect on your colleagues' practices. This is what it means to have a community of practice. And I'm very happy that in Indonesia we have so many MKMP, yeah, teachers groups, study groups, yeah, where they can learn from each other, yeah, a community of practice. Yeah. You can reflect on your own, and you can also reflect on others. Yeah. Now, of course, now let's see here. Now let's draw your own experience. Recall any action that you did to meet any language lessons objectives, for example. Okay. Yeah. Action that you need, that you plan. Yeah. Action that you have done to meet, other ways to do. Yeah. And now you can also recall, yeah, from your experiences which way or ways work well and which ones didn't work well. Yeah. Of course, reflection, and reflection. Yeah. But of course, if you are doing reflection, and reflection on everything you did, but you do not make a good record, then it's going to be very hard to help you moving on to the next level of the theorizing practice. Yeah. So that is why I think it's a very good suggestion to make a good record of your reflection, including your successes, including the failures, yeah, of what you did. Yeah. Good record. What does it mean to have a good record? Well, yes, of course, you're recording your own teaching. It's a good way, to have your self-study. Yeah. From your teaching, then you can reflect on the successes, on the reflect on the values, and then you can tell, why that particular way, for example, work well, and why other ways didn't. Yeah. And make meaning from your reflection. Make meaning. Why is it like this? Why is it like? What's the best way there? What does it mean to be doing that? What impact does it have on me or my students, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So make a good record. Yeah. Record, jotting down. Yeah. Jotting down, describing in writing, and so on. Yeah. And share from your writing here. You can share your reflection with your colleagues in MBMP, for example. Or you can transform your notes into an article. Yeah. An article of best practice, for example, in a professional forum. Yeah. Such as best practice webinars. I think the committee of this webinar series has introduced you to the best practice webinars. I think, if I'm not mistaken, last Monday, or yeah, I think that we had in our department best practice at the time ICT. So that is one, and we always invite teachers to share their experiences. Yeah. So yeah, I think you need to have a good record and transform your reflection, and transform your reflection into an article. Yeah, and then share your article in a professional forum such as best practice. Now this is the end of my presentation. Now, look. All of English teachers have the potential, as evident in my studies, the first and the second. All of English teachers have the potential of becoming theory builders. Yeah, theory builders, even though they have problems in articulating their theorizing. Now, don't worry, you have colleagues, you have professional organization to help you articulate your theorizing. So make use of these networks, yeah, to show that you have developed theories from your practice. So yes, you have the potential, but we have to admit that most of us have problem in articulating their theorizing. But you also need to remember that theorizing practice is a continuum, as shown in the levels of theorizing, yeah, by Cortagan and Kessel. We may have in different stages of personal practical theory development, yeah, continuum, always in the making, as part of professional development. One theory for one theory, or you may also start with another theory, and so on and so forth and so forth, as part of our professional development. So there is no end in it. It's always in the making, as who we are, our identities are always in the making. Now, this is important. To develop personal practical theory, you have to become questioners of your practices. Questioners, yeah, or questioners. I mean, you need to well, to be open-minded, uh, with, for example, suggestion. Yeah? Oh, well, from your students, for example, students' reactions, for example, yeah, from your colleagues, or and so on. Yeah, but you need to become questioners. Have I done this right? Have I done the right thing right? And so on. Yeah. You also need to become intense observers of your context and learners. You need to be good observers, yeah, intensively. You need to get to know your students well, of course. Not it just not come to the class and teach and then say goodbye and so on. But you need to be with your learner, yeah, emotionally and professionally, of course. Information seekers, yes, from people who may offer different views of things, yeah, yeah. You need to become information seeker and experimenters. Dyer, Dyer at all 2030 is famous for are famous for their books, the DNA Innovators. Yeah, yeah. So I do hope that my presentation here, from the origin, also empirical evidence, and some tips, But of course, I understand that these tips are actually normative. You as teachers shouldn't be told how to do this, but at least my tips can trigger further discussion later for our question and answer session, and also later, we may have or is it tips, working tips, from you to be shared in our best practice. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I really thank the chance for presenting my topic.
Okay.
So it's 60-minute presentation. I do apologize for this long presentation. But I would like to trigger further discussion to Wiwit.
Okay. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Pak Munir, thank you very much for that quite long presentation, but we do not feel sleepy actually, because we are trying to understand the presentation. And there are some questions in our Zoom chat and also in our YouTube chat dealing with the presentation. Are you ready to answer the many questions?
Maybe you can start with the statistics. Maybe how many questions there are. Among and so on. And maybe
Yeah,
we
there
can also
are.
we can also uh, greet our participants here. English teachers, wonderful, and
Yeah, they are wonderful, and
theorizers. Yeah.
they ask good questions here. So let's have it like discussion, and later on, if the time
How
possible,
many
we
questions,
can
Bu?
invite them to speak.
100 questions?
So, oh no, not that much. So we have
Okay.
7 question till now in Zoom and 2 question in YouTube, but they are all quite heavy questions. So I hope you need to answer. Okay, so let me tell you the first question here from, I don't know, here Pak Wahyu or Bu Wahyu, Wahyu April. This is related to car classroom action research. Can we say that when car doesn't run as expectedly is the best time for trying practice? So that's the first question, Pak
Oh,
Munir.
the first question. Okay.
Yes.
Can,
Can
can
we
you
say that
repeat?
when car doesn't run expectedly,
Mhm.
is the best time for theorizing practice?
Oh,
When
practice.
car doesn't run
Okay.
expectedly.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Bu Wahyu. Oh, Pak Wahyu.
I don't know Wahyu or Pak Wahyu.
Okay. From?
Pak Wahyu.
Oh, Pak
Pak
Wahyu.
Wahyu.
Yes.
Okay.
From
From?
Jember.
From Jember.
From
Yeah.
Jember.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Bu Wiwit. Thank you, Pak Wahyu, our beloved teacher from Jember. So you are asking a question over a failed classroom action research. Yeah, a failed classroom action research. Well, first of all, you need to refer to the concepts or the idea of classroom action research. Classroom action research is one of the professional endeavors, yeah, to improve our teaching and learning. Of course, that shows or share similarities to the concept of theorizing practice. Yeah, of course, if you look at that tiny aspect of research, classroom action research, then when you get it a failure, that you need to have the what is it, a new plan. Yeah, we call it you, a new cycle. Yeah? If you are doing it in one cycle and then you feel that it didn't work well as you planned, then you need to replan it. Yeah. Of course, how you know that the plan wasn't working well? Yeah, because you make reflection. Yes. So similar reflection, and reflection. But this is for a particular problem. Yeah, that you want to troubleshoot in your class, so that you plan a classroom action research. Yeah. Yeah, so in that context, then you need to replan it to have the second cycle, third cycle, and so on and so forth. Now, so if you combine your first cycle, second cycle, third cycle, and then you draw on these using a bigger view of your uh, teaching practice, yes, it becomes part of your theorizing practice efforts. Okay, so it becomes part of your theorizing effort. Now, what particular aspect that you want to follow here? Yeah, that you need to see it longitudinally. That is one meeting, and the second meeting, third meeting, and so on and so forth, so that you can later draw, maybe as Richard's 2015 has suggested, you may end up in an explanation, or in generalization, or in principles, or maybe you can end up in developing teaching philosophy. Yeah. So it's good question, that you start from classroom action research to develop your theorizing practice. I do agree with you, but it has to
Pak
be
Munir.
continuous. Yes, Bu?
Yeah, related to classroom action research, there's also a question from Bu Yuliandriani. What is the precondition to make teachers personal practice as a theory? Can it be
Yeah.
applied in car? So it is related to the previous question.
Yeah. What is the precondition for teachers?
Precondition. Is there
Personal.
any
Yeah.
precondition?
Teachers personal practical theory. Yeah.
Practice.
So
In a
the
theory.
the
As a
the
theory. As a theory.
look the concept that I introduced today is of course the objective theory, yeah, and the subjective theory. The subjective theory is what we call personal practical theory. Yeah, personal practical theory. So the theorizing practice will result in personal practical theory. Okay, personal practical theory. The theory that you develop from your practice. That is why our title today is theorizing practice. Okay, you develop theory from practice. Yeah, and of course, what is the precondition? The precondition is you yourself. You know, that you want to make reflection on your practice. If you do not want to make reflection as an effort, to understand, the nature of language teaching and learning, and to arrive at explanations, then it wouldn't be resulting in personal practical theory development. So the precondition is you. Are you ready for that, or do you want to do that? Yeah, of course, not everyone is ready to do this hard way. I think most of us will take easy way, right? Just teach and go, teach and go, get the money, the certification money. But of course, I'm not generalizing. There are so many teachers, as shown in my empirical study. 58 out of 107 respondents claim that they develop new theories. Yeah. Okay, Bu. Yeah. So, what is the precondition? You. Do you want to do that? Yeah.
Okay.
So, who
Well, there are many more
Yuliandri, ya?
questions.
Yuliandri.
Bu Yuli.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you,
Bu
sir.
Yuli.
Thank you, Bu.
From Jember. From Jember.
Oh, from Jember.
No.
Okay, we've got
Yeah.
two from
So
Jember, Pak Wahyu and Bu Yuli.
okay.
Yeah.
Because so far, as I know that when we make classroom action research, we have to take other theory. Because since some of my friends say that also I still believe in it. We are teachers, and how to say we are not expert enough in making book and others. So when we make classroom action research and then we use our own theory, will others accept our theory? That's why I dare myself to ask something.
Okay, Bu
Thank you
Yuli.
then.
Bu Yuli, that's why, I have this webinar, Bu. I want to rupture, we call it. I want to break this devil's cycle. That, look, the teachers are not theorizers. No, you have to embrace this. Now, this is, of course, the problem. There are so many people in this area, language teaching, English language teaching, who still are holding the old tradition that teachers are theorizers. So that is why if you conduct a Google Scholar search and then you type personal practical theory, and then you will find a small number of research in this area, because not everyone is ready. Now, of course, the question is like this, bro. Theorizers or experts are reluctant to share the we call it privilege. Let me say it, lecturers are considered as expert, and then all of a sudden now lecturers are not expert and teachers are expert. Will they accept that? That's a problem. You are breaking the tradition, of course. And
thank you. Really, thank you for the encouragement.
Not many people will give in.
I understand that, Pak Munir.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Bu
That's why
Yuli.
Okay,
I
thank
said
you so
Munir. There
much,
are still
Brother
many questions,
Munir.
Pak Munir.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Wiwit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bu Yuli, you are theory
Yeah.
builders from your practice. Yeah.
Thank you
Oh,
for
once
the
again,
support, Brother Munir.
We are ready to get the
yeah.
theory.
Once again, Wiwit, I think I need to
Yes.
what is it? Say, comment on Bu Yuli's statement that when you are doing classroom action research, you should be using um, expert theory. Of course not. You should be reading other researchers who who have shared the same problem
Research,
and
same
yeah,
problem.
and
Yes.
solution, and you should try their solution. Oh, that particular teacher has the same problem, and he or she used a particular concept, a particular, not only technique. There are many others. And let me try that. Maybe it also is working for my class. That's the idea, not theory. General theory or objective theory is general that we need to bring into practice. That's why post method brings particularity as one of the principles. That context specific. There is no method that fits to all. No, context specific. Yeah. For example, you want to implement the communicative approach. Maybe that works well in the English-speaking countries, but it might not be working well in our context. Yeah, that's why it's context specific. That's why there is a job for teachers to think about what's the best for the student. Otherwise, we will be replaced by robots. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question, Bu Yuli. Yeah.
Yeah, Pak Munir, your explanation just now is leading us to the next questions, because the next question related to yeah, something which is a bit complicated. So this is question from Pak Bambang Yulianto. The name is sounding so much just like our vice rector,
Halo,
Pak Bambang.
Pak Bambang, say hi, Pak Bambang.
This is not our vice rector, I think. Pak Bambang Yulianto, are you our vice rector here? The name is just the same.
One Kediri, ya. Halo, Pak Bambang.
Okay. So Pak Bambang here asks, as a professional, it's time for teachers to develop their theories, perhaps using narrative inquiry.
Yes.
And his question, who would examine the theories, Pak Munir? Who examine the theories? Who will use and practice the theories? The owners of the teacher, the owner of the teacher theories, I think here. Or other teachers. And this is related to Pak Koiri's question. Pak Koiri asked questions. First, who has right or authority to judge or claim whether a theory is objective or subjective? And then the second question from Pak Koiri, how can a subjective theory possibly evolve into an objective one? Thank you. Yes, Pak.
So
that's a complicated one.
Look, yeah,
between practical or philosophical. Yes,
you have bombarded me with so many questions, and I don't know how where to start from.
Well, I think it's related. It's related. That's why I what is it? Read the question from Pak Bambang and Pak Koiri.
Okay, let me reword Pak Bambang's question. Pak Bambang's question was who will use the resulted
who would examine the theories?
Who would examine the resulted personal practical theory? Okay.
Yes.
But he was also talking about narrative inquiry, right?
Yeah, he mentioned that teachers can develop theories using narrative inquiry,
narrative
for example. But the question is not that.
Yeah, I think Pak Bambang was in the same webinar last week with BBC Indonesia and Teflin.
Oh, yeah, Teflin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bambang, I think I should start with Pak Bambang. It's okay, but I will also attempt to answer Pak Koiri's question. Yeah, Pak Bambang, you need to to get the spirit of narrative inquiry. What is it? The spirit is empowering English teachers. That is why there is always an emphasis here, the power of story, the power of story, story. Yeah, that there is no what do you call what is it monopoly of story. No, 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 not in our world today. I think Bu Pratiwi agrees with me that in post-colonial studies, it's not their story, but my story, his story. And now we have to keep a room for the stories, yeah, including teacher stories, yeah. Bang, narrative inquiry is actually telling the stories of our own stories, and making meaning, That is why it's part of the professional development. It's personal development, yeah. And now you can imagine if one teacher has so much developed in in their profession, and one teacher, and now if we have, for example, a million teachers, who have such a quality, now we can imagine the quality of our education. Yeah. So yes, we have to give room for this one, individual stories. Now, there is no monopoly in the story. That was in the past. Monopoly, everything is monopolized by the so-called status quo, right? Status quo. Yeah. Now, Pak Bambang, what does that imply? Who will judge your story? You yourself will judge the story. Yeah. Well, because this is very personal. That is why the title is Personal Practical Theory. There is no way that you can just, oh, your story is inaccurate. Why? Because you can say, look, I know my context. You don't know my context. That is why you need to use your story, Pak, as the power, yeah, to convince people that you are a professional teacher. Use your story, convince them that you have done very well, that you have developed such a personal practical theory, that you embrace, that it becomes, the blood in your vein. Yeah. Now you can imagine if we have such confident teachers all around Indonesia. I don't think that will be left behind, right? Now, as there is no such a judge, but you yourself as the judge. Now, we need the power of what we call community of practice, but shared experiences, we call it. Yeah. When
Best
you,
practice.
yeah, of course, your best practice should be shared among you, the community of practice. Of course, Pak Bambang one, will be also sharing with Pak Bambang too, and we in UNESA we've got Pak Bambang too, and if you share that, there will be, we call it resonance here. There is a frequency among English teachers. Now, if there is a frequency here, I do believe that teachers' power, English teachers' power becomes strong, powerful. What does that mean? There is no, top down. Nobody can, force teachers to do this, to do that, and so on. Yeah. Now we see here everything has been top down, as if teachers have no power. Now it's time for us, to build our strength together, to show that we are powerful. Yeah. We are also theorizers. We have strong community of practice. Now, this will lead to what we call the formation of objective theory, Pak Khairi. So individual theories here, personal practical theories, are subjective theories. Yeah, if these subjective theories now have resonance, and power, I believe this will result in objective theory. Because very often now objective theory depends on who holds the power, right? Yeah, honestly speaking, the scientific approach, for example, which has to be implemented in English teaching around Indonesia, you know, is the result of power. Yeah, yeah. Teachers, English teachers in the classroom becomes the oppressed. If we refer to Freire, yeah, Paulo Freire, the education of the oppressed, then you will find that we are in that position, powerless. We can't have anything to say. Like to say, for example, look, scientific approach. We never heard of that in our English language teaching. What is it, terms? But we are forced to accept that powerless. Now we want to be powerful. Now we have to strengthen that using the community of practice. But you, as the what is it? The maybe the head of the teachers group in Kediri, and Pak Bambang is one of the excellent teachers, best teachers who represent East Java, yeah, in 2018, mistaken, yeah, best teachers competition. Yeah. And I do believe that many participants here are also best teachers. Pak Bambang can show, can also become the leader to get together the mass here to show that we are powerful. Yeah. So once again, Pak Hoiri, if this power, yeah, is in us, we hold the power, then it's a matter of just saying that becomes objective theory. As one example that I said, the scientific approach, it wasn't from subjective, but it was from the power, and it becomes objective theory. And now everyone has to accept that. Now we have to reverse, this formation of theories with the power. I hope that answers both participants, Pak Bambang and Pak Hoy. Did I miss anything, Bu Wit?
No, I think you have given so much enlightenment today, or perhaps just give us unexpected answer for some questioners, perhaps. Okay, Pak Munir, next questions. There are many questions actually, but I have to tell you, perhaps the time will not be enough because now it's already more than 11:30. 1:34 in my clock. So let me read question from YouTube, Pak. There are also questions from YouTube.
Yeah.
Here the first one is from Rizal Kuda. Hi, Pak Rizal.
Hi, Rizal.
Our old friend here. Do we have to similarize the way of our teaching according to the theory, whereas the theory sometimes does not match with the condition of the students? I think this is related to what you have mentioned, that we need to understand, we are the one who understand our context, and we need to explain our context to others, Pak Munir. Is that right?
Yeah, I think, thank you, Bu Wit and Rizal, Pak Rizal Kuda, it's a long time, that we haven't seen, each other, Pak, where have you been,
He's here.
He's here, yeah.
You can say hi to him.
I think you need to greet me, at the end of the session, Pak Rizal. Yes, I think Pak Rizal's question, reflect his position, as what is it? Initial teacher, early career teacher, we call it. Yeah, that is understandable. I think we need to see this from the teacher's life cycle. Teachers actually developing, or teachers are experiencing different cycles in their life. Of course, the ultimate one is the expert teachers. Of course, in the early career, that is always the problem. because they attempt to implement what they learn in teacher education in their practice. And in the first few years, that they have a conflicting reality. Oh, look, this what you call this objective thing doesn't work well, and so on and so on. And they start to become a reflective practitioners, And I do believe that, this is, for example, if you read Haberman's teacher's life cycle, yeah, or Steffi's life cycle, different, sometimes different, what is it, span, I mean, Haberman's, for example, classify based on 10 years, but Steffi didn't use 10 years, but 5 years. But it all, both life cycles show a gradation, with or movement, improvement along with the length of service. It's likely like the longer you are in this area, in this teaching profession, the better you are, and because that's why there is already the gradation of teachers life cycle. Yeah. So Rijal, that is an indication that you begin to become a reflective practitioners. And if you reflect on what you were doing, or reflect on what was not working well, and then you try new ways solving the problem creatively, yeah, innovatively, and then you move on, not only from the experience and gestalt level, but also you are moving on to the scheme, schematization. You become, you can see the relationships and so on. So if this and then that and so on. Yeah, but so I believe that at your stage of professional development, there is a lot of aspect to reflect on, and one of the aspects is that one what you are asking today. So carry on, Pak. Do make reflections on your problem, on your failures of implementing a certain theory in your practice. That's my answer, Bu Wiwit.
Pak Munir, before we go to the next question, it seems that Pak Slamet want to share something.
Oh,
Pak
yes,
Slamet
please.
Nawan. Pak,
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Pak Munir, thank you for sharing. And also all Bapak Ibu who joined this webinar. It's very, very interesting topic. And it gives, a new energy for us, to implement what Pak Munir is, a idea talking about a theorizing practice. Bapak Ibu, please then do not afraid to create your own way of teaching. Why? Because the old theory, like Pak Munir said, is the product of foreigners, experts, probably who do not know exactly our context. In Indonesia, which has a lot of cultures and backgrounds, may have different situation and context that does not fit to the theory, the old theory. That's why it is time for you, to reflect your practice and then use it as a tool to teach, the English for our students. It is time for you all. Mas Menteri has already proclaimed Merdeka Belajar, and it is quite, a good time. Why? Because you do not need to prepare 20 pages or more a RP, lesson plan.
Lesson
One
plan.
page is okay. Yes, lesson plan. One page is okay. In the past, you are not, you do not have enough time to prepare the way you are going to teach, but you are preparing the administration stuff. But now it is a time for you then to prepare a good actions what will you do in the classroom? So it is your time now to be, powerful individual to introduce, hey, this is the way of my teaching and it's successful. And there is nobody probably will challenge you because, somebody else does not know the context like Munir said. You are the power now. The class is yours. You know, it is a time. When I ask questions to, the teachers or the informants in the, Pak Munir Sendai's research, seems that they do not know the theory that they use. They probably try to refer to old theories like grammar translation methods, and then the communicative approach may not be, fit to this condition. Bapak Ibu Guru, now wake up and try to be powerful by theorizing your practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Slamet. Yeah, thank you for relating this chance to what is actually happening in the Department of Education and Culture. The new, we call it a new atmosphere. Yeah, new atmosphere, new
era,
policy, new era,
new normal.
new era with the freedom. Yeah. Freedom, teaching freedom, learning freedom, yeah. But yes, of course, we need to see this in practice, yeah. As Pak Slamet has mentioned, it's your chance, yeah, to show them, yeah, that you have taken this chance. Yeah, of course, there will be hindrances, of course, yeah. Why? Of course, as I said earlier, some people do not want to lose their grasp over you. Yeah. Some people do not want to lose their power over teachers. So because teachers have, okay, in some cases, have been made use of. Yeah. Well, for example, this is for an easy one: the politics of textbooks. The politics of textbook.
Okay.
The politics of
Pak Munir.
For example.
Okay, Pak Munir,
Yes,
sorry,
yes.
because we don't have much time. So,
Okay.
well, I'm sorry, Bapak Ibu. It seems that we cannot be able to answer all questions you gave us in Zoom and YouTube. Later on, we will try to answer the questions in our Telegram group. Pak Munir, will it be okay?
Oh,
Later,
yes.
perhaps there are some,
Later, yeah.
if possible, perhaps
Yeah.
just a short answer. But here there is question also related to how to. Oh, okay, let's like this. From Bu Istuhandayani from Malang, how can we legalize our practical theory derived from our own experience about the legalization of our own theory, Pak? Is it by joining to that Pak Himawan asked question. So if we can, for example, write an article or present what we have practiced in our classroom, successful or unsuccessful in a seminar or webinar, can we be called already to rise a practice? Is it like that?
Yes, Bu, that's accurate. Yeah, that's why we need to make use of our network. Yeah. Sounding out, telling the world what you did well through professional forums, yeah, is a good way, yeah, to tell them. Well, this is like this, Bu, to answer your question. Let me ask you, how do you say that somebody is kiai? Is it because of his beard? Of course not. Is it because of his age? No, sometimes not. If somebody's age is young, it's not kiai but goose. Yeah. Sometimes it is one of the indications. But this is actually public acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement.
Now, yes, it's a title given by the community. Well, we should start from the community of practice. Yeah, to give you the title. Yeah, community of practice built from maybe the first is in your nearest circle, Bu? Who are in your nearest circle? School context. Very often, you have been in team teaching in your school. There are some English teachers, right, in one school. Well, some schools are not lucky to have only one English teacher. But if you have 2 or 3 English teachers, now these are your circle. The first to convince that, or the first to share your work. And you can also learn from them and have conversation with them. Go to a forum with them. Share to the a bit broader circle, yeah, within one kecamatan, within one regency, yeah, the
Or at least in MGMP, ya, Pak?
Yeah. Well, and of course, in Indonesian context, there is a Teflin seminar, yeah, and so on. Yeah. So this will give you we call it justification that your theorizing practice is acceptable, yeah, among us, yeah, among the English teachers in Indonesia, a community of practice. Now, if you go further to global world and you have the chance, for example, to attend, yeah, Asia TEFL, Pak Slamet has been successful in publication in Asia TEFL, for example, you will be acknowledged. Look, your level is Asia level, and then of course you can expand your circle to the global. Yeah.
So
yeah, but of course the
so
first
if
your
I
English
may,
circle, yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You,
So, Pak
you have
Munir,
to
because our
convince your
time is
colleagues.
very
Yes.
limited
Oh yeah,
now.
thank you.
Our time is
Yeah.
very limited, so I'm sorry for other questioners. It seems that we cannot answer all the questions. We will have stop at 12. Let me give a short conclusion of what we have mentioned. So it starts with reflection, critical reflections, and then we try to theorize what we have reflect in a form of theory, and we don't have to be afraid to theorize what we reflect related to what we have
I think
practiced, and then share.
Yeah, I think you need to emphasize that. Look, the outcome of the theorizing, may, according to Richard, may, and in, for example, explanation. You can explain what is actually happening.
Yeah.
Or you can draw generalization.
Okay.
Or you can draw your teaching principles. And out of the utmost is the teaching philosophy.
And the most important thing here is to make it public.
Yes.
So there will be public acknowledgement.
But
you have to tell the word.
Yeah.
Public acknowledgement is important. So you need to, to share to your inner circle, and then you make it wider by writing write what you have found or what you have theorized in
community
an article,
of practice. Community of practice.
And publish it in a good journal. Share it in seminar, webinar.
Yeah, I think
teachers forums.
Yes, don't forget that. Don't forget that our department also charter.
Oh, we have best practice.
Best practice. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then
we also invite.
Yeah, and then in 1 year we have an English teaching practice as well. Conference as well. So there is a kind of a level. Thank you.
ETC, English Teaching Conference.
English teaching
also
conference.
One of the venues that the teachers can make use of to
that's
share their experiences.
The place. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Perhaps we still have about how many minutes here? 11 minutes, Pak Munir?
Yeah.
11 minutes. So the most important thing here is to theorize practice. There's one last question here, Pak Munir. Let me ask you. Is theorizing practice the same like teacher reflection? Yes or no, Pak?
Okay. If you ask for similarity, that is not similar. Why? Because theorizing practice starts from reflection. Yeah. Okay. So reflection is part of theorizing practice. Once again, in my conclusion here, theorizing practice is a continuum. It's not one spot here and then you end. No, because this is our professional development. maybe you at one stage you are still in a certain level, you still only see things in an abstract way, you haven't been able to to see the relationship, or at maybe you develop into a higher level, for example you are able to explain why things happen. Well, that is what it means to be an English teacher. Now that's why you need to ask yourself, what does it mean to be an English teacher? Do I have does it mean just to say just to teach? Does it mean that I have to find a best way? It's actually part of your, we call it personal identity as an English teacher. And also there is also professional identity. You are required to do professional development too. Otherwise you won't be achieving golongan 4B or something like that. That is also requirement. Part of your identities. Of course, we've got so many identities, personal, individual identity or personal identity. And part of your personal identity, of course, is your sometimes yourself. Yeah. And then there is a professional identity. Professional identity can also be your institution, yeah, and also the community of practice identity. So that's why it's related, reflection and theorizing practice. What theorizing practice is a continuum. Yeah, it's in the making always. So please do not give up. If you are starting only to make reflection, don't worry. I think I do believe that within your career as a teacher, you will be developing into higher levels of theorizing practice.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it, Pak Munir?
Yes.
Perhaps you have, what is it, easy, some tips for teachers to make them more confident to be able to theorize their practice. As a closing, perhaps you have some tips to make them ready, to
Yeah.
make them
Yeah.
braver to theorize what they have. What they have. I
A
believe
good,
that everyone has their experiences, right?
a good suggestion, Pooh. But look, as in the first place, I said that I don't want to put myself as expert who will tell the teachers what to do, right? As I said, most of the tips that I mentioned in my slides are normative. Yeah, normative mean, yeah, yes, that's the general ways, but some some tips do not work well in
Do
certain
not work
contexts.
in some
Yeah, no, yeah,
contexts.
that's why
Yeah.
please, you need, as that's the statement from Dreyer, you need to be the interrogator of yourself, of your context, of your practice. And don't forget, you need to be experimenter too. Yeah. So that's in my slide, my last slide before thank you. You need to be interrogator and also experimental. Are you ready with that? Will you take that chance? That's the question that you need to answer. Okay, so from this webinar, I do hope that you become theorizers. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
Okay.
start
I believe that everybody can
experimented.
try it,
Yeah.
Pak Munir.
Sorry, I
No,
Well,
forgot
I
no,
hope
it.
that
in a very
everyone's
positive way, in a very positive sense. Why? Because usually, the teachers are, reluctant and afraid not following a certain theory. But in fact, you give a kind of enlightenment that, well, you have a right, you have a chance. It's a time
Yes.
for you,
we
it's
we
time
are
for us.
allowed to ask to question theories from experts, right? Because
That
if it
Yes,
is
that's
we
not
right.
should. Yes,
That's
that's
right.
applicable
right.
in
That's
our
right.
context, so we have
Yes.
right to question
Hmm.
theories from experts.
That's
Yeah.
why.
Experts.
That's why we need to question ourselves. Have we actually taken the push method era, or it's just only saying? Yeah. we are in post method era, but we are actually doing the old era.
Yeah.
Sometimes, this is a good question to ourselves, a reflection. Yes, please.
One thing that I like your statement is,
Yes.
The product of, the product that we have to follow, like a scientific approach.
Yeah.
It's away from our English language teaching. Formally we have a gender-based approach that is probably, I can say that it's a good, in the sense that it is following the good theory steps and so on, and then it comes out of sudden that there is a kind of introduction of scientific approach, and then it is far away from our English language teaching.
Because
And
of the
again, the
power,
teacher,
Pak.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. That's why now is the time then to empower the teachers.
Yes,
To create their own theory based on their practice.
Yeah.
Jadi kan praktis-praktis Bapak Ibu yang sudah penjenengan lakukan, ayo kita jadikan sebuah teori. Iki loh teoriku. Personal theory, like Pak Munir said. Thank you, Pak Munir.
Yes, Pak. Pak Selamat.
If I may say, yeah, Pak Munir, Pak Selamat, if I may say, as the closing, okay, before I talk about exit ticket. So now in COVID era, when everyone work from home, teachers can also share their theory or their practice using online platform like YouTube and any online platform. So it also helps you to be known publicly. So why not? Okay, Pak Munir, thank you very much. Pak Selamat, thank you very much. Yes,
that will lead to our second series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What's the title for the second series? Yeah? Because I'll be the moderator for that.
Yeah, we will see whether it will be the second or the third, because we are still considering that. But it is in the list. Okay, it is in the list. In the end of our session today, our host will play the slides related to what next. But Bapak Ibu, before you leave our Zoom chat, our Zoom room, I mean here, and our YouTube, please don't forget to fill in the exit ticket if you want to get a certificate from this webinar. Please not to forget to fill in the exit ticket. Okay, the exit ticket will generate your certificate. If you don't fill in the exit ticket, you will not get the certificate. Please not to forget it. Okay, last but not least, thank you very much for all of you. I'm so sorry if we cannot answer all questions given by you all participants because of our limited time. I thought 2 hours will be too long for Pak Munir, but it turns out that it's not enough for Pak Munir. Actually, there are still questions.
Thank you for having me and all of you.
Yeah, thank you very much for all of you participants. And for more communications, we will announce in our Telegram group. Okay, so don't hesitate to ask questions to our PIC there in our Telegram group if you have any questions. And if you need to contact Pak Munir personally, Pak Munir, perhaps you are ready to be contacted personally by our participants. How should they contact you? By email?
Yeah, I think,
if there are questions, perhaps?
Yes, please, by email will be much better so that I can have much, space to answer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the email address of Pak Munir is ahmadmunir@unesa.ac.id. Okay, Ahmad Munir, Ahmad ya,
one word,
M ADMUNIR@unesa.ac.id. Well, I think it's a wrap. Thank you very much for all of you participants. Have a good day. Have
thank you
good
having me.
thought. Thank you. I hope you are happy joining our webinar. See you in our next webinars. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.